Hello and welcome. Well, for some time now, there has been a long-running debate, not only here in Australia, but around the world, about the prospect and probability of children possibly contributing to the spread of COVID-19. And as we know, people of all ages can be infected by coronavirus, as medical professionals have confirmed the symptoms are milder in children and they are less likely to develop severe illnesses. Thank goodness for that. Well, children do, however, have a wide network and connections to other children through school, their social networks and hobbies. So it is natural that this issue has been of concern. So today, I wanted to share a story with you about a world-first algorithm a Melbourne tech startup called ClassSolver has developed that shows how primary schools can reduce the spread of COVID-19 outbreak by 36%. Yes, you heard me, 36%. Now, this groundbreaking algorithm sees the spread of COVID-19 in primary schools slowed by creating classes optimized for social networks. So to talk to us about this today, we welcome Geoff Craig, ClassSolver's General Manager, and I'm going to try and pronounce this word. We were just practicing it before the recording, statistician. There you go. I said it, I think. Okay. Who developed the modelling. Now, Geoff Craig, just a little bit about our guest, is a former management consultant with over 20 years modelling and analytical experience in telecommunications and financial services. And he's also a published academic and former maths teacher. And in 2019, he joined the ClassSolver team as GM. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
I'm well, Rachel. Thanks for having me on.
This is great, and congratulations. I mean, to have, I guess, such an important input into this algorithm, groundbreaking algorithm, you must be extremely proud of your work, no doubt.
Yeah, it's been really exciting to be involved in. We've been working with schools for about 7 years now, but to see COVID arrive and realise that we could help out in a small way has been really fantastic.
So in saying that, I understand that ClassSolver was launched in 2013, initially designed to help solve the problem of manually creating school class lists. And the company has pivoted, I understand, to address the urgent need with schools to help combat the risk of COVID-19 infections. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I don't know how much you know about the class list creation process. The schools we talk to say that creating class lists is the second most important thing that they've got to get right for their schools, because number one is getting the right staff, number two is the classes, and having a good balance of kids who are doing well, kids who are struggling, kids who are challenged behaviourally, etc. They tell us that's the second most important thing that they do. But of course, then we had COVID arrive this year.
That little thing.
That's right. That little bump in the road that we're just a mild hiccup for all of us, and really throw classes into chaos, particularly in North America, because they're on the reverse year to us. So their school year ends in June, whereas of course ours ends in December. And so they were getting to the end of the school year, not able to get to school, any of them, the staff or the students, and trying to say, well, how on earth do we do this? The traditional process was to get together with bits of paper, sometimes with Microsoft Excel, and try and put class lists together. And they literally couldn't do it. And we were fortunate that we were able to help them out because our software is online and virtual. But then they started pushing the software and throwing into it things that we hadn't planned for it to do. So a lot of the US schools are doing things like saying, okay, well, if your family name is in the second half of the alphabet, then you're going to attend school on, say, Mondays and Wednesdays, but if you're in the first half of the alphabet, you're on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as an example. And they were suddenly trying to say, yes, but our school doesn't split nicely in that, we might have 2/3 of the population of the student population in the second.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they suddenly had all these unbalanced classes again, and so they were taking our software and beginning to push it to try and help them through that process. And we saw them doing that. So we're back in sort of May, June, and we saw them doing that and realised actually we can even help that by pushing the algorithm even further and making it really take account of things. So things like bus routes for the US are a big factor, and what sports that the kids play after school, all these other factors that affect the network. So yes, they spend a lot of the day in the class with the other kids, but of course they spend time on the bus with the people on the bus, and if they go and play sport after school or go to scouts or whatever, they've got all sorts of groupings. And the software that we've got with the improvements that we've made is able to actually now take those things into account, so that the kids you go to school with are the same ones you go on the bus with, are the same ones you go to sport with. And therefore, if someone does get infected, it's only getting to that group. It's not spreading through the whole school. It's contained within that group, and therefore reducing the spread of COVID if you've got COVID at your school.
It's a brilliant concept. And I read that there was modelling of 3,500 students across Australia, which was used to cluster students and factor in their social networks, as you were just mentioning, the extra co-curricular activities and household dynamics. Is that right as well?
Yeah, that's right. So we're fortunate, because we've got hundreds of schools that we work with, we're fortunate to have access to their data. So we're able to take some of the schools that we work with here in Australia. We took a couple from each state, and put together 3,500 students worth of data to see what would happen when running it, and actually sort of modelling it through to help us. We had the suspicion that this would work, but we didn't know. We had to go off and actually model it and verify it.
And I read that ClassSolver's purpose is to save teachers and educators time, as you just mentioned before, but ultimately to help ensure that children are placed in the best class for their needs. And it doesn't replace the expertise of administrators and teachers. It's actually just more so a tool to help support them to make the best decisions possible. Would this be the right way to maybe to explain it maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said earlier, the classless creation process is very important for schools, and something that takes staff a lot of time. A lot of the schools that we work with tell us that across the school, this is a job that will take hundreds of hours of staff time in total. And so, to have software that is efficient and helps them through that process, often they can save sort of 75% of that time. And of course, that's time
that's a lot
they can
of
reinvest
time.
back into it is. They can take that back, invest it in becoming better teachers, or helping students with problems, or just being on yard duty, whatever all the things are that they need to get done. But as you say, we're always cautious to say it's a tool. Your iPhone is fantastic, but it doesn't actually stop you from being able to think. You still need to review what it says. And in the same way, ClassSolver is a great tool, but the staff still need to look at the classes and say, does it actually work? Did we mean to put Rachel and Geoff in the class together? We know all they're going to do is sit at the back and talk all day long. Whoops, we forgot to tell the software. We better fix that up.
So what I'm hearing, the COVID-friendly algorithm then takes into consideration factors that may impact interactions across the school, such as groups. And as you mentioned before, after-school activities like bus routes, the suburbs, and even household bubbles as well, I understand, and as part of the Victorian government stage plan. Is that right?
Yeah, so obviously Victoria finally is doing better than we have been doing.
Finally,
I think we said it this, it was nice to meet you as another Victorian. We've been locked away in our rooms for a while now. Because the software can be adapted to the needs of the local environment. So the social bubbles, as far as we understand, is not something the US is doing, but we've got them here, and that sort of, if you think about cousins who've got the same grandparents or something, they might be in a social bubble together. The software can take account, they don't have to have the same family name. Often cousins obviously don't have the same family name. But if you put into the software, these two groups of kids are in a social bubble together. So you've got these twins over here and those three brothers or sisters over there, but they're all in the same social bubble. Then the software can take account of that and make sure that it's still dealing with that appropriately to reduce the spread, yeah.
And so, as I was mentioning before, I understand that you've predicted that if primary schools create class lists for 2021 and consider student social interaction and networks such as what you've just mentioned, that they can reduce the spread of outbreak by 36%. How is that calculated then? How do you actually know it's 36%?
Sure. This is where my background as a statistician and modeller comes in, because you've got to take it through and, okay, so in scenario A, we've got these 10 schools that I mentioned before. Let's create their classes and then let's simulate infections. So for each school, we ran simulations of infections through the school. I've got a little bit of background in network modelling and went off and read a bit of the epidemiology papers and that sort of stuff to improve my understanding. And yeah, model how infections spread through a school. And then given the same child is infected in the model to start with, but under our optimised classes, see what the infection rate looks like in that case. And as you can imagine, by keeping those kids together, yes, the kids in the same class, they're going to be infected basically in either scenario, but because you've reduced the social connections across classes, across the school, you're reducing the spread between grades and between classes, and that's where you get that saving in the spread of the infection.
And you mentioned that you've been working with schools right around the world, in particular the US, where ClassOver implemented the new COVID-19 friendly feature, and saw an opportunity for the same markets in other countries like Australia. Is there anything else you can maybe tell us about this? Is it Canada as well that you've been working with, New Zealand, I believe?
Yeah, so we've got a long history in Australia and New Zealand. We've been in Australia for, we're obviously an Australian company and been here for about 7 years, been in the New Zealand market for about 4 years now, and getting good traction there. The US and Canada pretty much is this year, it's 2020. We didn't mean to arrive at the same time as COVID, but we did arrive at the same time as COVID. And so, yeah, both countries are sort of, well, you know, they're massive countries, obviously, and we've got a long way to go, but we're off to a good start with both of them and getting really nice feedback from the schools that we work with.
Understandably. And I understand the ClassOver has since worked with hundreds of schools in Australia now, across both public and private sectors. And as I was just mentioning before, there's a whole heap of new features. But I mean, overall, like, what has been the response that you've sort of found? I understand that you've actually worked in particular with one school, St. Andrew's Primary School in Clayton as well. And you've had some really great sort of reviews and some feedback from them as well. Anything you could maybe share?
Yeah, absolutely. So Paul Wakeling, down at the principal at St. Andrews, has been fantastic. He's one of our very early adopters of ClassOver, and really gets the problem and gets the need for what we do. And is and my kids didn't go there, but from what I've seen of him in the school, he's got a great school and he's running it really well, really empathetic. And he talked about the need with kids coming back to term 4 now, the need to just spend half an hour with each of them and just check in and see how they're going, and because it's such a disrupted year for all Victorian students. And so he's been great. But yeah, we've just been recutting our we have a demonstration video on our website, and we've just been recutting it because previously it was largely us talking, you know, and showing the video. Now it's basically our clients. There's a bit of us, but basically it's our clients, because they're the ones who can give an honest feedback and stuff. So we interview our clients and we get feedback from them, and the video is now them talking about their experiences with ClassOver and what that's like.
I've got one of his quotes I just wanted to read out. So this is Paul's quote. He said, the program can be specifically adjusted to our school's needs, also that we can take into consideration each of the students' friends and who the students interact with, both inside and outside the schoolyard. And it's already a massive time saver. And if I can also protect my students and staff and the community, it's a no-brainer. So no wonder you're getting rave reviews from everywhere at the moment. Now, I wanted to acknowledge that we published your article, and the title is Aussie Startup Develops Groundbreaking Modelling to Reduce COVID Outbreaks in Schools by 36%. Now, for someone who hasn't read the article yet, can you please tell us just basically what it's about and, of course, what inspired you to write it?
Sure. That overall story that we've been telling about the classless creation process is where we began, and then this opportunity through the US to see that schools had to respond to COVID, and less so, but still true here in Australia as well. Schools had to respond to COVID and do something about how to deal with that. And one of the things they have to deal with is how they create their class lists. And so we took that opportunity to improve our software to support schools in reducing the spread of COVID in their schools. And it's something we've been thrilled to be part of, and really, thankful to Kitapedia and all the other people we're talking to for having us and talking about it, because it is. Schools do fantastic work, and they're often underappreciated, the schools and the staff at them. But we know how vital they are to our communities and to the education and welfare of our kids. And so to contribute in a small way to that has been fantastic for us.
And I understand the Intuitive software will be working hard with schools and educators in the planning for 2021 school year. Has that work already begun at the moment?
Yeah, so we really see sort of towards the end of term 3, through the term 3 holidays, because teachers don't take holidays, even though some people think they get lots of holidays. They actually don't take much in the way of holidays. And now into term 4, we're seeing lots of schools getting this started, because they, as I said, they know this is important. They know that when they don't, a big factor for many of them to consider, and that your listeners would know, is that parents very reasonably say, "Oh, my son or daughter has a challenging relationship with that other child at the school. Could you please make sure they're separated?" Or those sort of things. To keep track of all those things is an enormous task. We've seen Excel spreadsheets and little black books full of notes about all the things that principals and vice principals are trying to keep track of across the school. And so for them to start that process and try and create class lists that they know will work for the kids, will work for the teachers, and that the parents aren't going to ring them up and say, "Do you remember last year I told you to keep those two apart?" And to keep all of that in track and in progress to get a successful outcome is something that absolutely they're starting now, and a lot of them are planning to get finished soon, so they've got time to review it and make sure that it's really going to work for 2021.
So ClassSolver then, I'm hearing, has the ability to create classes instantly based on a range of customized requirements then. So including things, for example, like keeping children apart and those types of things. Is that right? So it's not just taking into consideration COVID, but also additional things. For example, as you just mentioned, the children that don't get along, and can the algorithm sort of support that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very important part for schools, that ability to, and sometimes it's about pairing. I'm a parent of twins. Now we wanted our twins to be separated through school, but many parents of twins want their kids to be together through school, because they provide emotional support for each other and that sort of thing. And so the software can do both of those, to say keep those twins together or keep those twins apart, as suits the school and suits the parents.
So things, for example, like behaviour, academic performance, and all special needs. It's fantastic. And then otherwise, besides that, I mean, how can ClassSolver reduce the spread of COVID in school? I mean, from that perspective, I understand the COVID-friendly algorithm takes into consideration factors that may impede interactions across all kinds of things, as we were just mentioning. But I mean, how does that impact then the children? Do they have any other choice, that, like, for example, if they want to be with their friends and all those types of things? Have you had any interactions like that or any feedback that has been difficult to sort of to work with?
We actually love feedback that's difficult, because that's how we improve the program. So the version that we had 7 years ago is nothing compared to what it is today. We no longer get difficult feedback. We still get feedback on how to improve, and we certainly take that on board. We love feedback, but things like friendships, that's a key component in the software now as well. Because that need to say, okay, well, who are they going to play with at recess and lunchtime? That's in there as well. So it's taking account of all of those factors, which is, as you say, is really important. So
traditionally, then, how have schools created their class lists, sort of up until now, then, and still today, of course?
Yeah, well, the vast majority have got some version of sticky notes. Now, whether it's cut out bits of paper or index cards or sticky notes, occasionally Excel spreadsheets or Google spreadsheets. And we see some schools go to quite large approaches to this. I've seen schools that have, they've got wood makers on their staff who've actually gone home and cut out little wooden placeholders to put the cards on. Other schools will print off magnets with the students' names. Others will cut out the photos of every single, the school might have 400 or 500 students. They'll cut out every single student's
Very
photo.
laborious process, sounds like.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is reflecting what we love about teachers, that they care passionately about their students and about having a good education for all of our kids, which is wonderful. But then they're putting a lot of time into this process that is, as I say, it's critical to what they do, but there are better, more efficient ways now with ClassOlver to actually get this sort of stuff done.
And why do you think class lists are so important then?
As you said in the introduction, I'm actually an ex-teacher, an ex-maths teacher at a high school. The balance of a class, both for the students and for the teacher, is really critical. So as a teacher, if you have a class with too many kids who are behaviourally challenged or academically challenged, conversely, too many kids who are actually doing really well academically, to have classes that are unbalanced adds significantly to the workload for the kids and for the teacher. For the kids, you've got a number of challenges. The first one is the one that you just mentioned, which is about friendship, particularly when kids are young. If they don't feel safe and secure in their class, if they don't have a friend in their class. So it's very important for kids to have a friend in their class. But then on top of that, of course, if a teacher is struggling with their class, the people who suffer the teacher suffers, but the people who really suffer are the students, because if a teacher is spending all of their time dealing with 3 students rather than the class in general, then those other 15 or 25 students in the rest of the class, they're not getting the support of the teacher that they also deserve. And so you get these sort of knock-on effects where if you don't get your classes right, it has a flow-on effect, and of course that lasts most of the year. And the other flow-on effect is to the leadership of the school. So a lot of parents, very sensibly and very understandably, if their child is struggling at school, will go and see the staff. Now, if the reason the child is struggling at school is because the class isn't well balanced and the teacher doesn't have time for everyone, then that becomes an issue for the school, because you'll get parents coming in and saying to the deputy principal or principal, look, my child is struggling at school, can we do something about this? And you suddenly find that you have all these flow-on effects. It's one of those things that if you get it right, it's kind of like good umpiring. If you get it right, no one notices, but if you get it wrong, it just has all these flow-on effects and really impacts the quality of the education for the kids, the quality of the teacher's workload, and the leadership and their ability to deal with problems and that sort of thing. And that's some of the feedback we get. I mean, we market ourselves on 2 things, but in many ways it should only be one. So we market ourselves on reduction in time and reduction in stress, but really it's probably just the reduction in stress, because the reduction in time is a bonus, but the reduction in stress for principals and deputy principals and teachers, that's the key. And for our kids, actually, the reduction in stress for the kids too.
And so you've been around for now 7 years. I mean, besides all of the benefits you were just mentioning, is there anything else that there is any likely benefit? For example, I mean, if children are in the right classes with the right classmates and all of the other benefits, that their grades could improve. I mean, is that likely at all? Have you seen any results potentially? I don't know. Just wanted to ask. Yeah,
we know you're spot on, and you reminded me of the things I've meant to say, which is great. There's actually academic research that shows that students perform better academically when they're in a well-balanced class. We've read those papers. We obviously didn't write them. We're not educational researchers ourselves, but yeah, that research exists, and there is evidence absolutely to show exactly what you're saying, that not only are students happier in a well-balanced class, but they actually perform better academically and get better results from them as well. Absolutely.
Well, and you'll only just continue just to refine that algorithm year on year to continually improve that. So look, overall, congratulations. It is a really extraordinary initiative, and now with the lens of, on top of it, of helping reduce the spread of infection across school and wider community, plus all of the other benefits which you've spoken about, is just sensational. And just providing a solution to support schools and educators as they're starting for the new year for 2021 and beyond. And of course, just continue with COVID-19. Heaven knows how long it's going to be around in our life, in the world that we're living in, and hopefully not too long. But, once COVID's sort of been and gone, you're still going to be able to provide those added benefits and, sharpen the pencil year on year with all of the information that you're going to be gathering from the learnings from this COVID era that we're living through at the moment. But I mean, for anyone watching and listening, what would be your key messages that you would love for them to take away from our chat today?
Sure. I think there's probably, hopefully not three big ones, three little ones. That class lists are important for schools, that there's software to help with that process, and if we have to be living in a COVID world, hopefully we don't, fingers crossed, but if we have to be living in the COVID world, we can reduce the spread of COVID as well.
Now, for anyone watching and listening also that want to sort of get involved and would like to be able to learn more about how they can implement Class Solver, and is it only for primary schools? Is it for high schools as well? Secondary schools?
Yeah, we do work with secondary schools, not the very top of secondary schools, the year 11 and 12s, but certainly years 7 to 10, we absolutely help out secondary schools, because there's still that need to get those classes balanced. And my experience as a teacher is as a high school teacher, and I've certainly wanted balanced classes for myself. So yeah, absolutely, those years 7 to 10 of high schools, absolutely.
So if anyone watching and listening, they would like to be able to inquire, can parents inquire on behalf of the school? How does it work? How do they get in contact with you guys then?
Sure. So we're at classsolver.com.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 S's in the middle of that. It looks a little bit silly when you're writing it, but there's 3 S's in the middle. In terms of who we deal with, we deal with the schools. The schools are our clients. Of course, we want parents to be to have a good result and all that sort of thing. So I think if parents are interested, they're welcome to visit the website and learn more. But if they're sort of interested in getting their school involved with Class Solver, they probably need to approach their school and talk to them directly. As I say, we're happy to give them information, but the schools are the ones we deal with, because they're the ones who are actually doing the work.
We'll have all of those links in the show notes. Geoff, it's been wonderful chatting to you today, and congratulations on this incredible initiative, and all the very best of luck for the future. But thank you again for your time. Take care.
Thank you very much for having me, Rachel. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Take care. Stay safe. Right. Bye.
Bye.